Now tonight we're asking, what do you make of the state of the ANC as the first day of the National General Council wraps up? Do send us your comments and questions on WhatsApp to 072-110-5584 or call us on 010-594-6010. You can also engage with us on X at Newzroom 405. Joining us is political analyst Sanet Solomon, Africa-Asia Dialogue Senior Research Fellow Thembisa Fakude, as well as the Black Business Council CEO, Mr. Kganki Matabane. Mr. Fakude, I'll start with you. As an international relations expert, you've watched how ruling parties abroad handle internal fractures. With the ANC being a party that's on renewal or that's aiming for renewal right now, and from your vantage point, how does the ANC's internal turbulence then shape South Africa's standing, especially on the global stage?
Well, I don't think the ANC is doing very well in that regard. Number one, they don't communicate very well when it comes to their international relations. For obvious reasons, I think Derko is much more well-placed and much more vocal in terms of articulating the foreign policy positions of South Africa. What we've seen in the ANC often is quiet at best. They do host now and then foreign leaders from political parties, but they are not articulating the position of the ANC, nor are they vocal enough outside, of course, the Palestinian-Israeli issue. On all other issues, we hardly hear the position of the ANC, do we know exactly what the ANC stands for.
Yeah. Mr. Matabane, I'm sure wearing your hat as CEO of the Black Business Council, you would be watching this NGC quite closely. Are there particular signals of stability that you are hoping the ANC sends, or the message that the ANC sends this week? Are you hoping for that message of stability from the party? And what will signal that?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nhlanhla, and thank you very much for inviting us. For us, we want to focus on the economic part. And maybe just to give you a few statistics, in 2022, the number of unemployed people, and I'm not talking about the extended unemployment rate, there were around 8 million people unemployed in 2022. As we speak now, we've got 8.5 million unemployed people. As far as the economic growth is concerned, in 2022, economy was growing at 2.1%. At the moment, it's almost growing at 0.something%. And again, when you ask anyone in South Africa to say, what is the economic policy of South Africa? No one can tell you. And for us, those are the responsibilities of a governing party or a ruling party. Even now, even if they are not necessarily 100% ruling, but they still have a very good influence in government. So when you look at the graphs and the indicators, things are actually going down instead of improving. So for me, if I was the president, those would be the questions I was going to be asking myself and asking the party members to say, why are we not able to grow the economy? Why are we not going to deal decisively with unemployment? And the other issue from our side as a Black Business Council is that the economy is still owned, managed, and run by white people in the main, which then says the majority of the population, which is 92% of the population, is still playing in the periphery. So for us, those should be the questions that the president should be asking himself and also asking his fellow people in there.
So, Sanet, when listening to President Cyril Ramaphosa's speech addressing delegates at this meeting earlier on, he was quite firm to reiterate that this meeting is not about deciding who leads the ANC. From your perspective, do you see even rumors entering into this meeting, rumors of leadership plots? Are these a genuine political discontent within the party, or simply noise generated by factional jockeying, especially ahead of 2026?
I think it's quite common for this kind of conversation to be popping up around this time. We know that there've never been any ANC presidents that have actually finished their second term. I think if it were to happen, then Ramaphosa would be the first. I think that it is logical that people would be planning for succession, particularly because he'll only be in office until 2027. That's if he should be able to. We've seen in the recent weeks a lot of speculation around whether or not he would be leaving or whether or not he would be replaced. And I think that those are obviously valid concerns that people have. And I think it's definitely things that will be creeping in. I don't necessarily think that it will form part of the formal agenda, but I think that meetings like this lend themselves to this kind of discussion. And I also think that it's an opportune moment for those people because they are, for once, all in the same rooms and they actually can converse and have these kind of discussions. So I definitely think that unofficially there will be discussions around succession and possible succession planning.
Thembisa, given your long view of South Africa's diplomatic landscape, how might a fragmented or even indecisive NGC impact the country's ability to indeed play the middle power mediator, if you will, the role it showcased at the recent G20?
Well, I think they'll continue doing so. The challenge, of course, is that the foreign policy within the ANC is led by personalities. President Cyril Ramaphosa, by and large, dictates or is the one who's been visible in terms of articulating our foreign policy positions, and I think is going to continue doing so. But also need to remember that from where I sit, President Cyril Ramaphosa has also been more interested as well in his own career. If you see the involvement of South Africa's foreign policy, often biting more than it can chew, whether it was him leading a delegation to both Russia and Ukraine, which did not yield any results, and continuing to insist on hosting all of these expensive international platforms. It tells you that he's more interested in ensuring that his visibility as a leader from South Africa and a leader from within the AU is visible and much more articulated. But whether that benefits South Africa, we're yet to see. And I know that many people, including myself, at some point were all excited about the G20 in terms of enhancing brand South Africa. But a couple of days later, we are still trying to find out precisely what did we achieve by hosting the G20.
Mr. Matabane, with that said, business often talks about the need to professionalize the state. If you are advising delegates directly, what reform would you be telling them is most urgent at this point, especially for indeed restoring investor confidence in South Africa?
What we would like to see is the state having capacity. And Thembisa has just spoken about the G20, where we've seen business playing a much, much bigger role in the G20, basically influencing everything, mainly because they were sponsors, which then tells you that there's a financial capacity challenges in the state, and you can't have a situation where one sector of the economy is almost now funding government, because then they're going to have an advantaged influence over the others, which does not necessarily assist the state. But what we also want to see people be employed on merit. And there's a testimony, if you look at ESCOM. ESCOM has done extremely well because they moved from appointing political people there and appointing proper professionals, proper engineers. Rand Water as well, if you look at Rand Water, it's run by proper engineers and then proper professionals. So we just need to make sure that in all the SOCs, we appoint competent people, because when we appoint competent people, but also give them space to run the organization, you'll get good results. And that will also include the director generals. We need to look at, and we will be supporting them to professionalize the state, to say a director general probably should be there for 10 years instead of having these 5-year periods. And when the minister comes, then the DG must leave. So we need to move to a certain way where we can have the director generals being permanent, because they are there, whether the minister is new or not new, they can continue to run the state, so that we have the consistency that we've seen, because we've seen it in other provinces where the DG, the CFO stay for longer. Even from an audit point of view, those institutions will receive clean audits because people then understand what they're supposed to happen. So for us, I think we just need to say, let's strengthen the state so that the state does not get unduly influenced by external factors like big business, for example.
Tonight we're asking, what do you make of the state of the ANC as the first day of the NGC wraps up? We continue the panel discussion after the break. Do stay with us. Welcome back. This evening we delve into the question, what do you make of the ANC, of course, as it wraps up the first day of its National General Council out in Boksburg. We also want to hear from you, our viewers, as to what do you make of the developments across the day. And of course, as we forecast to events that the ANC will be leading this week. Just like Lucky has called us in Johannesburg. Lucky, what's on your mind?
Yeah, when we talk about the ANC, we are talking about like a party which has failed us. The party that is just leading but with no direction. Because as we know, all of us, everyone is complaining about the ANC. Is the working class, or either you are on, the students are complaining, everyone is just complaining about the ANC. But the more they are trying to make their renewal or whatsoever, the more things are just getting worse. Because the ANC is being led by greedy people who doesn't care of the country. People who just, who just want to, they just want to make themselves rich. We see things on the news about the ANC. It's a lot.
Got you.
Yeah,
Lucky in Johannesburg, not convinced by the ANC's message of renewal as well. I'm afraid we have to move to Pietermaritzburg as well and speak to Kevin. Kevin, what's on your mind this evening? What do you make of the ANC wrapping up the first day of its NGC? Are you convinced by their message of renewal?
The first person you'll need to investigate is our president. That para has gone cold. All this Mashaba commission, who's been arrested? No one's been arrested. No one. The old Zondo Commission, how many of them were arrested? It is a joke. ANC in the whole country is a joke. Thank you.
That's Kevin coming to us from Pietermaritzburg. Now, do send us your comments and questions still on WhatsApp to 072-110-5584 or call us on 010-594-6010. You can also engage with us on X at Newzroom 405. Joining us still is political analyst Sanet Solomon, Africa-Asia Dialogue Senior Research Fellow Thembisa Fakude, as well as the Black Business Council CEO, Kganki Matabane. I'll continue with you, Sanet. When listening to the Secretary General of the ANC, Fikile Mbalula, he says, and I quote, "This is not the time for leadership battles." As we reflect on some of the calls we've received so far, and in your analytical experience, does even shutting down a leadership debate calm the storm, really, or merely drive them underground?
I do think that it does drive them underground. So instead of actually adding it to the agenda, because the entire meeting is to also take stock of the ANC. So I think that succession planning is possibly something that they could put on the table, not something that should dominate the entire discussion, but definitely something that they should at least touch on, even if half a day was dedicated to it or a few hours is dedicated to it. Because as we've rightfully seen, the entire political party is in turmoil. There is a leadership crisis within the political party. There is a lot of negative perceptions about the political party. And I mean, in the run-up to the local government elections, you want to quell these kind of discussions instead of have more of these personality clashes that will come up in the run-up to the elections. And I think it's definitely something that he should do. But I think that the overall perception is also that there's been a lot of dismissiveness around a lot of issues in terms of the ANC, and we've seen them take the stance. So this is really surprising.
Mr. Fakude, from a global governance standpoint, how important is internal discipline within a ruling party when international investors or even partners assess their political reliability here?
Well, I think overall, the environment in South Africa for direct foreign investment is quite positive. given the latest developments, whether it's us being moved from the grey area and the positive midterm budget that was presented by Mr. Kodongwana. So overall, we are looking good. President Cyril Ramaphosa is a very strong brand. Many have argued that it's stronger than the ANC itself, and as long as he's at the helm, you are likely to continue attracting positive attention and investment towards South Africa because he's a trusted leader. And we saw how he interacted with the leaders from the G20. He seemed to be quite friendly and having a very positive and impressive relationship with those leaders. So from that perspective, I think we're likely to continue attracting investment. Of course, one is worried about what will happen come next year, November 2026, when the local government elections take place in this country, because that will be a referendum for many people in terms of what will happen in 2027 when the next elections do take place. And I think that's the greatest concern at the moment. I think the fact that we have a strong Cyril Ramaphosa brand, more than that of the ANC, is quite concerning to many people I speak to, at least internationally. People are wondering who's coming up next. And those questions, of course, are raising a lot of concerns to many people who want to come and invest in this country, because they do believe that at the moment we have a leader in the form of Cyril Ramaphosa, but they are quite doubtful if there will be anyone who will replace President Cyril Ramaphosa and continue with his economic trajectory.
Yeah. Mr. Matabane, while we watch the ANC's program, what would you regard as, for lack of a better term, a red flag coming out of this NGC? Something that might indicate that the party isn't serious about renewal it keeps promising for its electorate?
I think again, the party is not necessarily judged as a political party. It's judged based on government and what they do in government. And if you had the viewers, they are basically talking about corruption. And I think their contention is that there's a lot of talk on dealing with corruption, but from an action point of view, there hasn't been much. If you look at the Zondo Commission, one will have expected by now that there will be a lot of high-profile people who are in jail. We see, for example, also at the lottery, they've been looting of the lottery, but people are still roaming the streets. Hence, people are also, even now with the Nhlanhla Commission, people are not necessarily positive regarding whether those people, something will happen to those people or not. So, as part of the renewal and the review of the ANC in government, they're supposed to then look at that and say, but what have you done as far as corruption? What have you done as far as crime is concerned? And then find ways of dealing with those issues. So one thing that I think the president has said today that we agree with and we're happy with is that he confirmed the commitment of the ANC to the broad-based Black economic empowerment, and we just then calling for them to implement it effectively and efficiently, and then deal with anyone else who's trying to divert us by getting involved in corruption, because Black economic empowerment is not the same as corruption. People commit corruption all over the place, but they have to be dealt with harshly. And I think just to add to Thembisa, there has been a lot of positive sentiments in the past few weeks. We've been upgraded from an investment point of view, a grading point of view. We've been removed from the grey listing. The debt is also stabilizing. But again, and Thembisa will know better, because public relations is not supposed to be the main focus. The public relations must help you to communicate positive things, but you must then have actions. Because when we engaging with the ANC and government, we always ask them, but how are you going to create jobs? Because for us, that is the biggest issue, and that is the biggest threat to our democracy. But you can't have an answer on how the jobs are going to be created. You just hear people say, no, we want to create 2 million jobs, 1 million jobs. But the jobs are supposed to be an output of an action. The jobs themselves are not the action. So we should then find a way to say, how do we then create jobs? And in our view, you create jobs by supporting businesses. So you're supporting small business, women-owned businesses, youth-owned businesses, and then those businesses then will then be the ones that are going to create jobs. You don't necessarily then come to the podium and say, I'm going to create jobs. So we just need to, if I was the president, I'll also then appeal to the ministers and everyone else involved that let's stop with the slogans and get on with implementation.
Let's stop slogans and get on with implementation. At least that's word from Mr. Matabane. Sanet, it would be amiss of me not to discuss coalitions with you before we wrap this conversation. Coalitions have been very unstable across the country. With your political lens on right now, what must the ANC then commit to at this NGC if it really wants to remain competitive, especially in a coalition-driven era?
I think that one of the key things that the ANC has been struggling with is obviously trying to consolidate the coalition it has at national level with what is happening in local and provincial government. And I think that one of the things that it should consider is not necessarily having a one-size-fits-all approach. We know that at national level, for example, the ANC and the DA were working relatively well together. But if you take, for example, in the city of Tshwane, it was not necessarily in the ANC's best interest for them to go into a coalition with the DA, and it wasn't even something that they had considered. So they worked better with other parties such as your Action SAs and others. So I think that there is no one size fits all. I think that it is important for the national leadership to actually allow those local voices and the provincial voices to actually guide them in terms of what is happening on the ground and then planning for the elections in terms of that. I think that if they just try to take what is happening at national level and try to replicate it at provincial level, I think that it will definitely blow back. And I think that that's one of the key reasons why we're seeing them not do relatively well in terms of the by-elections all around the country.
Yeah. Mr. Fakude, you've studied political organizations across the African continent. Why do you think the ANC's renewal agenda repeatedly stalls? And what deeper ideological or structural tensions are at play here from your view?
Well, I think the ANC overemphasizes unity, but actually its strength is division, which has kept the organization much more stronger. Because if they were united, they would have long disappeared from the political scene. But the fact that we've got, the ANC has always prided itself of being the broad church, consisting of people with different views. That has actually been one of the characteristics that has led to the survival of the ANC. It's the oldest party or political party in Africa. And some of us get worried when the unity mantra is overemphasized, because that is, from where I see it at least, is the beginning of dictatorship. You must allow people to differ. You must allow people to have different views. And these views that differ have, for a very long time, allowed the ANC to thrive. And that's why you have the ANC today. But I think it's a pipe dream to think that you're going to revive the ANC. The culture is just too deeply entrenched. The culture of corruption, the culture of self-serving, by many senior leaders and active members of the ANC, at least those who are occupying executive positions within various government institutions, and they flout to their wealth. We had President warning the members of the ANC not to go and flout their wealth in the townships or within various communities where the ANC members live. But we continue seeing that happening all the time. They thrive by coming to the township and rubbing salt to the wound of those that are inflicted by this corruption. And it's not going to stop anytime soon if you continue to hear these very expensive weddings that are taking place, millions of rands being spent on weddings by the members of the ANC. And they will invite the media, by the way, because I'm part of the media. They will invite you to come and witness this extravagance. And they'll be proud to be watching and reading this over the weekend papers. So this is a culture that's deeply entrenched. I don't see it being eradicated as a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. But I think it's up to the people of South Africa to speak sense to the ANC, and that can only be done through the ballot box, and I think that's what's going to happen. We heard, for example, today that the President Cyril Ramaphosa's ward in Hyde Park, DA, had 97% of the votes of the Hyde Park where President Cyril Ramaphosa lives. So that tells you that people are actually really, really upset and angry about the culture that has continued to be, determining what is the ANC of today. And hopefully, after this meeting or this conference that's taking place this week, there will be a wake-up call, and we might just be surprised and see a new ANC, but I really, really doubt it.
Only time will tell. Speaking about the ANC's first day of the NGC wrapping up in Boksburg today, it continues, of course, over the next 3 days as well, as the ANC meets to discuss its plan for renewal as well. We continue this discussion in a short while. Do stay with us. Welcome back. A quick reminder that we are wrapping up the first day of the ANC's NGC meeting out in Boksburg. Of course, looking forward to hearing from you as well on your assessment of day one of the NGC. What do you make of the ANC's call for renewal or this rejuvenation that the party aims for? I want to take a quick look at your WhatsApp messages coming in right now. One coming in saying that, good evening, it's Nhlanhla M from KZN. The ANC has reached a point of no return. Most of them, if not all, are involved in criminal activities. And where they gathered now at Kuruleni, it's stinking corruption. And then Majola in Gauteng says, good day, I can talk as an adult who grew up under COSAS, SASCO, UDF and ANC. I'm honest to myself and the country. The ANC has poisoned itself, now in a dying bed. It must be removed from power. Then overall, even if in the rural areas, chiefs have joined it and are dying slowly as well. That's Majola in Gauteng. And Anonymous saying, unfortunately, the ANC leadership are lost in their own arrogance and self-interest. They will perish very soon. The people will no longer accept empty promises and lies. That's Anonymous also giving us their point of view there. Let's go to more of your calls right now and go to Polokwane, where Moses joins us. Moses, what do you make of the NGC hosted in Boksburg for the ANC?
I've got belief that the ANC is going to self-correct. You know, the issue that the ANC is going down the drain is only a myth, because ANC has done a lot. ANC has done a lot from the rural areas. If you look at Venda, for example, all the people there in Venda, their standard of living has gone up. Especially, I'm talking especially here in Limpopo. And if you look at the municipality here in Polokwane, you look at the developments that are coming up. You know, you cannot paint a black brush to everybody within the ANC. There are elements that are bad, which we need to uproot, and then we need to keep them out of the ANC. If you look at the past, there was an apartheid government which has killed a lot of people and stuff like that, and everybody was unhappy about the National Party during that time. But now the power is with the ANC, which is a black organization in the main. Now you must understand that there will be people who will be angry about blacks having to lead a lot of people. But I'm not saying this thing through on a color line or stuff like that. But what I'm trying to say is that ANC has done a lot. Rural places, there were no electricity, there were no water, there were not a lot of things. But now we need to work very hard to make sure that the people that are stealing from the poor, they need to be gotten rid of from the ANC. And that is how we are going to self-correct. And then I believe that the ANC is on the right path. All the things that has happened, the Nhlanhla Commission and all those other commissions that are on, those people who are found to be guilty, they must be arrested. And people must see justice to be done so that they must get that belief again and go back to, and then believe in the ANC. That is what I can say. I believe that the ANC will self-correct. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's Moses in Polokwane holding a differing view, saying that the ANC, or at least he's convinced that the ANC will self-correct. Maybe with that said, I'll get final remarks from our panel of guests. Sanet, I'll start with you. As we wrap up, realistically, what would you define as a successful sitting of this NGC? Does it emerge, or does the ANC emerge more unified, or are we going to get more clarity, especially on issues around policy?
I think that there has been a lot of these instances where they would gather for a number of days. There would be a lot of policy suggestions. There'd be a lot of dialogue, but I don't necessarily think that that's the problem. I think that the implementation generally tends to be a problem. I think that it would be disingenuous to not acknowledge the factions that exist within the ANC. The party itself is internally fractured, and I think that there's a lot of internal dynamics that need to be resolved. And I think that for the longest time, these have not been addressed, but rather swept under the rug under this banner of uniting the political party. And I think that once they start having open and honest dialogue about where they see the party going, I think only then would we start seeing changes. But I also think that there might be an overall perception, even if the ANC seeks to renew itself, there might be a general perception by South Africans that they've given the ANC over 30 years and that they may not change, given that they've had these 3 decades and haven't really self-corrected. So I think that despite what they may want, I think the direction in which the country may be going may not necessarily be in the same direction that the party is going. And I think that that's something that the party itself needs to possibly consider.
Mr. Matabane, what are your expectations, of course, as the ANC continues meeting this week?
I think listening to the viewers tonight, I think that also should worry the ANC, because when majority of the people are basically having a perception like that, what you need to do, instead of defending, you have to correct the wrongs, because you can hear people are really not happy with what the ANC has done. So we've got, for example, now we've got the water mafias. Our thing earlier, Eskom has done extremely well, which is true, but the cost of electricity has just skyrocketed. And unfortunately, when the cost of electricity or cost of any essential service goes up like that, you are then basically, because people cannot live without electricity, you are encouraging people to breach meters, you are encouraging people to steal electricity. So for me, if I was the president, I'll then focus on, yes, we've stopped load shedding, but how do we bring the cost of electricity down? Because that is affecting individuals, that is affecting poor people, that is affecting businesses. And then when people have to go and vote where there's no water, I am from Limpopo myself, so when Moses talk about water, I'm not sure where he's talking about. Where does he get his facts from? He must just look at the unemployment rate in Limpopo. There are probably more than 60% of people who are supposed to be working are not working. My village where I come from, there was water during apartheid. Now there's no water because people are switching off the water so that the tankers, who are the friends of the politicians, can make money. So it's very, very important that when you are in a crisis, you don't defend yourself.
Right.
You look at the facts and then say, how do I correct from what the people are saying?
Mr. Fakude, I'm going to put you on the spot here. In under a minute, give us your expectations as well as the ANC continues to meet this week and discuss policy.
Well, it's going to be a successful conference, of course, according to the ANC, but I don't think it's going to yield any tangible results.
Thank you so much. Thanks to our guests, that's Thembisa Fakude, as well as Kganki Matabane and Sanet Solomon, joining us, giving us their expert analysis tonight. Of course, as the ANC's National General Council unfolds, the country watches very closely to see whether renewal becomes a reality. Of course, as the ANC sets itself up for rejuvenation and renewal as well, if you pick up some of the comments made by their leaders across the day.